George the Gentle Gorilla. George the Gentle Gorilla grew great green grapes in a gorgeous grove. Grinning gleefully, George grabbed a giant grape, gulping it greedily. But one gray, gloomy day, a gang of greedy geese glided into George's grove, gobbling George's great green grapes greedily. Gobsmacked, George gazed at the gluttonous geese. Gathering guts, George grumbled, "Go, greedy geese, get away from my great green grapes." But the geese just giggled and gobbled more grapes, growing giddier. Growing grumpier, George got a grandiose idea. He grabbed a guitar and began to gently strum, giving the geese a glorious, groovy tune. George's gentle, groovy guitar gig got the geese grooving and gliding in a grand gala. Gradually, the greedy geese grew giddy with guilt. "George," they gasped, "your generosity and groovy guitar gig have guided us to grace. We guarantee to guard your great green grapes." Grateful, yet giggling at the goofy geese, George gave a gracious grin. "Go on, grab a few grapes," George generously granted. And so, George the Gentle Gorilla and the goofy, formerly greedy geese gathered in the gorgeous grove, gobbling great green grapes together, grooving to guitar gigs until the glowing sunset gave way to a glimmering night. As the moon's glow glinted over the grove, George's grape-growing genius gained him not just a gaggle of geese guardians, but also a gathering of other garden guests. Gophers, giraffes, and even a gregarious goat named Giselle began to gravitate towards George's groovy, grape-filled gatherings. George, ever so generous, decided to expand his endeavors. He began brewing grape juice, calling it George's Groovy Grape Gulp. The Groovy Gulp became a gigantic hit, gaining George a grand reputation across the green lands. But with fame came funny follies. The gregarious goat, Giselle, started a grape-themed band named the Grapeful Groove, with George on the guitar, Giselle on the drums, and a geese choir providing gleeful background vocals. Their first gig was a gala in the grove, but a gust of wind sent their sheet music gliding into the grapevines, causing a chaotic cacophony of croons, caws, and clatters. George, giggling at the goofy mishap, guided the group back into a groovy rhythm, proving that even in a gale, George's gentle guidance could galvanize a gala into a gleeful gathering. The story of George the Gentle Gorilla, his grape grove, and his groovy gatherings grew into a legend. Generations of garden dwellers gabbed about George's generosity, his groovy tunes, and the gala that turned a group of greedy geese and a gregarious goat into guardians of the grooviest grape grove the Greenlands had ever given. And so, George's grove remained a gleeful gathering spot, a testament to the ties of friendship and the groovy tunes that could turn even the gloomiest day into a grand gala of glee and generosity. As seasons shifted, so did the tales of George's grove. The story of George, the gentle guitar-strumming gorilla, and his groovy grape gatherings grew grander, weaving into the woodland's whimsical lore. It wasn't long before George's grove was deemed a magical nook, attracting not just animals, but curious characters from far beyond the forest's fringes. One fine frosty morning, a gaggle of gnomes garbed in glittering garments glided into the grove, their gaze glinting with glee at the sight of George's grape grove. "We've galloped and gambled across great glades to gaze upon this grand grape grove," they gushed to George, who greeted them with a gracious grin and a generous gesture towards his groovy grape gulp. The gnomes, giggling with gratitude, gifted George a glistening gem that glowed gently in the grove's greenery. "A gem of growth," they gleefully proclaimed, "guaranteed to give your great green grapes a gloriously grand growth spurt." Grateful, yet a tad gobsmacked by the gnome's generous gift, George gingerly grounded the gem in the grove. Instantly, the grapes gained a glow, growing grander and even more glorious. The news of the gem's magic spread, and soon, George's grove became a gathering ground for beings of all backgrounds, each bringing their own bit of magic, melody, and mirth. The grove was no longer just a place for grazing on grapes or grooving to George's guitar. It grew into a grand guild for the exchange of goods, gab, and guidance. Giselle, the gregarious goat, launched a line of grape-inspired garments, while the geese set up a groovy grape-themed theater, performing plays that preached peace and partnership. Amidst the growing grove's glamour, George remained gentle and grounded. He never forgot the days when his only company was a grove of grapes and a dream of gatherings filled with laughter and song. He made sure the grove stayed open to all, ensuring that no one ever felt greedy or glum under its glowing canopy. And so George the Gentle Gorilla's Grove grew into a legend, a lush, lively land where grapes, glee, and groovy gatherings guaranteed a gleam of goodwill. A place where every guest, from the ground-dwelling gopher to the glinting gnome, could grab a grape, gulp George's groovy grape gulp, and groove to the gentle, joyous jingles that jubilated under the jade-hued juncture of jubilation. As the grove's fame flourished, it wasn't just the earthbound who were drawn to its delights. Tales of George's generosity and the grove's gleeful gatherings glided through the skies, catching the curiosity of a group of genteel, gliding giants of the air, the griffins. One golden dawn, a gust of wind heralded the arrival of these grand creatures, their great wings gracefully gliding them into the heart of the grove. The animals gawked in awe, for griffins were beings of legend, blending the grace of eagles with the grandeur of lions. George, ever the gracious host, greeted the griffins with a gallant bow, offering them the grove's grandest grapes and a goblet of his groovy grape gulp. The griffins, greatly touched by George's generous spirit, offered in return a gift of their own, a gleaming golden gourd that glittered in the sunlight. This gourd, they gleamed, grants a glorious glow to your grove, guarding it from gloom and granting good weather for your grapes to grow. George gratefully accepted, and as the golden gourd was placed at the grove's heart, a gentle golden glow suffused the space, bathing every leaf and fruit in a light that promised perpetual prosperity and peace. The grove's gatherings now grew even grander, with George's groovy guitar tunes echoing under a sky perpetually painted in the soft, serene shades of sunrise. The griffins, enchanted by the earth's earnest elegance, began to bridge the gap between the ground and the skies, bringing tales of the grove's grandeur to far-flung corners of the world. Soon, creatures of all kinds, from the mundane to the magical, from the minuscule to the massive, made pilgrimages to George's Grove. It became a beacon of harmony and hope, a place where disputes dissolved before the grove's gentle glow, and every being, no matter how grim or grand, found solace in its serene space. George, with a heart as vast as his grove, saw his dream realized in a realm where generosity and gentleness governed. The grove stood as a testament to the truth that tenderness and tenacity, paired with a touch of magic, could transform any space into a sanctuary of peace and prosperity. And in this grove, under George's gentle guidance, every gathering glimmered with the goodwill of its guests, proving that even in a world of varied voices and vast differences, harmony could be hewn from the simple act of sharing grapes under a golden glow. As the seasons cycled and the grove's legend lived on, George's gentle heart yearned for a new venture, one that would weave the wisdom of the grove into the wider world. The grove had become a symposium of species, a testament to the tapestry of togetherness, and George pondered on how to parcel out this peace beyond the boundaries of his bountiful haven. Inspired by the gregarious gatherings and the diverse dialogues that danced under the dome of his grove, George envisioned a grand gala, not just in the grove, but spanning across the lands, a festival of friendship that fluttered from forest to field, from glen to glade. He shared his splendid scheme with the griffins, the gregarious goat, Giselle, and the grove's garrulous guests, all of whom gleamed with glee at the grand idea. Together they began to weave a web of wonders, a festival that featured the grove's groovy tunes, glorious grapes, and the golden glow of goodwill. The griffins, with their grand wings, carried invitations across the continents, calling every creature, from the minuscule to the mystical, to partake in the planet's first-ever gala of grapes and grooves. The day dawned, dappled in hues of dawn's first light, as guests began to gather, not just in George's Grove, but in every nook and cranny of the world where the griffins had spread the word. In each locale, a liaison from the grove shared the spirit of George's sanctuary, ensuring that every gathering gleamed with the grove's goodwill and generosity. From the snowy peaks, where penguins paraded with plump purple grapes, to the arid deserts where camels crooned to the groovy guitar tunes, the world wove itself into a tapestry of togetherness that mirrored the magic of George's Grove. The golden gourd's glow grew, gilding the globe in a gentle glimmer that guaranteed good weather for the gala. Back in the grove, George gazed at the globe, a gift from the griffins that now glowed with the golden gourd's light, showing live scenes of the gala's global gatherings. His heart hummed with happiness, seeing his dream draped across the diverse tapestry of the earth, each thread tied with the tender touch of togetherness. As the gala glided into the night, the grove glowed gently, a beacon of belief in the beauty of brotherhood and the boundless potential of a simple shared grape. George, with a grin as wide as the world, strummed his guitar, sending songs of solidarity soaring into the starlit sky, a serenade to the spirit of unity that underpinned his grand gala. And so, under the banner of George's grand vision, the world wove itself a little closer, proving that peace and prosperity could prevail, propelled by the simple acts of sharing, singing, and celebrating the symphony of existence, a legacy of love and laughter, rooted in the heart of a gentle gorilla and his groovy grape grove. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon after the night of the grand gala, the world woke to a whisper of change, a gentle, almost imperceptible shift in the melody of the morning. The gala of grapes and grooves, though concluded, had sown seeds of solidarity that sprouted in hearts across the continents, from the densest jungles to the highest mountains, from the bustling cities to the serene suburbs. George, standing amidst the now quiet grove, felt a profound peace. He had dreamed of sharing the spirit of his sanctuary, and now that dream had woven itself into the fabric of the world. The grove, once just a patch of peace in a vast forest, had become a symbol of global unity, a reminder that harmony could be harvested with hands held in friendship and hearts tuned to the same song. As the grove's usual residents, gophers, geese, giraffes, and the gregarious goat Giselle, began to stir, they found George gazing at the globe, now glowing softly in the light of dawn. They gathered around him, a silent circle of solidarity, sharing in the moment of reflection on the night's global gathering. It was not just a gala, George finally spoke, his voice gentle, yet carrying a new depth of wisdom. It was a glimpse into what the world can be when we choose to share, to sing, and to support one another. Our grove, our gala, was a beacon, but the true light, the enduring glow, comes from within each of us. The residents of the grove nodded, their eyes reflecting the resolve to carry forward the message of the gala. The grove, they realized, was not just a place, but a state of being, one that they could carry with them and spread wherever they roamed. In the weeks and months that followed, the impact of the Gala of Grapes and Grooves was felt in large and small ways. Conflict ceased in corners of the world, where the gala's message had permeated the hardest hearts. Creatures of all kinds found common ground, shared in the bounty of their environments, and danced to the universal tunes of togetherness. And George, the gentle gorilla with a dream as vast as the sky, continued to strum his guitar in the grove, now not just a guardian of grapes, but a steward of a new story for the world, one where every note sung, every grape shared, and every step taken in kindness echoed the ethos of the grove. As the story of George and his grove was told and retold, it became a legend, a lore of how a gentle gorilla and a grove of grapes galvanized a global gala of goodwill. And in this legend, the world found a blueprint for a future where peace prevailed, not because of grand gestures, but through the simple acts of sharing, caring, and celebrating the common melody of life. And so, under the watchful eyes of the griffins, the guidance of George, and the glow of the golden gourd, the grove lived on, a testament to the truth that gentleness, generosity, and groovy tunes could indeed guide the world towards a groovier, more gracious tomorrow. The end.